everyone, welcome or welcome back. Today I am talking about two moments in workout classes where men violated my personal space and how people pleasing instinct showed up in real time. In both of these situations, my first response was to freeze and laugh it off, even though I was deeply uncomfortable. And I want to talk about why it happens, what I did instead this time, and then what I'm still learning about setting boundaries as a recovering people pleaser. For those of you who are new, this channel is for fellow recovering people pleasers. I use real moments from my day to day life to reflect on what worked, what didn't, and what I'm learning as I deconstruct fawning and try to live life more authentically. So let's get into it. I feel like for those of you that like going to different workout classes or just like going to the gym in general, there's one aspect of the gym that is difficult pretty much every single time that I go, and that's men. I take a lot of workout classes. I like to do things like kickboxing, strength, and Pilates. And most of the time, everything is fine and everybody is nice and cool. But there's one class I take called Body Combat, which is a non contact class that's inspired by kickboxing and martial arts. I've been going consistently for, I'd say, about 5 to 6 years, and I actually became an instructor this past year and went through the certification process. And I share that because I am comfortable in this space. I know the class, I know the format, I know the norms on how to behave. And I just mentioned that because that's what made these particular moments I'm going to talk about so jarring. I'll talk about two instances of behaviors of men that violated my boundaries, how I handled it, and then maybe what I could have done better, and then how these men are now because they still go to the classes and I still have to deal with them. And I want to preface this by saying that I don't have all the answers on how to handle this or how to handle men in the gym. I'm just hoping that other women can relate to this and that we can talk about how to handle these situations, especially as somebody whose instinct is to fawn and people please. So, for the first instance, class had just ended, and there was a man who he regularly attends these classes. I know who he is. He came up to me and another woman and I were talking, having a conversation. This man and I, we hadn't really interacted much before, and it's encouraged to give high fives and fist bumps. They're quite common. So I didn't really think much of it, him being in the conversation. So he walked up, particularly to me, it seemed like, and he made a comment like, I'm trying to keep up with Miss Combat over here, and that's the tone that he had. And he ended up having a towel in his hand and he hit me with the towel on the side of my butt. Now, the combination of this weird comment and the towel hitting me caused me to freeze. I just could not believe that that had actually happened and that he came up and actually did that. I stayed silent and I laughed it off, but I could feel how uncomfortable I was because my head started to get fuzzy. There was this warmth in my body that I didn't really know how to explain. And now I understand that that's probably repressed rage at what happened. And looking back, that freeze and that laugh response was probably fawning. My nervous system was trying to keep the situation from escalating, even though it had crossed a line. So the second incident involved a different man. For this, I was near the front of the class when he arrived late, and he ended up directly behind me during a non-contact move where we sort of lunge and we pretend to grab ankles. And again, we're grabbing air. We're not trying to grab each other's ankles. At the end, he actually ended up grabbing my ankle, and frankly, it scared the shit out of me. It's non-contact. You're not supposed to touch anybody. So in that instance, instead of freezing or just kind of laughing it off like I might have in the past, I actually yelled to him, what the fuck? Don't do that. You scared me. And laughed it off and seemed like he didn't really care. But he ended up not doing that again. And he's been in the classes. He's, kept his distance from me. And, honestly, in both of those situations, I probably could have been more mad and really laid it on these men. And looking back, maybe I should have. But I think the fact that I said anything at all, especially to the second guy, it kind of made him stop and be like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have done that. I guess I was inappropriate. And, I could tell that men, especially, they do these things in particular to me because they're jealous and they want to undermine me and make themselves feel better. Both of these guys are middle aged, and I think they're starting to realize that they are not necessarily the best in the class anymore. And so they try to find ways to chip away at my self confidence. And each time that I say something, I am making sure that they are not achieving their goal, which is something that I'm very proud of. And, sometimes like the first guy that I talked about, he will go to kind of give me a fist bump. And I don't know why, but he just hits like your hand really hard. And I think he does that to everybody, not just me. But, when he does that, I'll say something like, ow, that hurts. Like, I don't like that. And I try to say it in a way that's like, not just joking around like, ha ha, but in a way that's like, no, you need to know the impact that you have on people. And I want him to know that I'm serious. And, anytime that these men are near me, I just back away or just keep my distance. I don't approach them. And it sucks that I have to do that, but men are unpredictable, especially in the gym. And if they're going to go violate my personal space, I feel like I need to be on guard each and every time I'm around them and continually maintain those boundaries. It's something I'm learning that you might set a boundary or say something, but that doesn't mean that necessarily they're going to do what you want. You might have to continue to maintain those boundaries. So, even a small response in relation to actually both of these men, it was enough to at least stop some of the behaviors. It may not have been a perfect response from me, but it was a response in which it mattered. And before, I probably would have focused more so on their intent, especially with the first guy, because it was unclear if he actually meant to hit me. Maybe it was just a joke. I could have said a lot of things that invalidated my experience. And I went back home that night and I tried to justify and think about what was I going to do in this instance moving forward because I knew I'd have to interact with him again. So I'd say things like, well, probably didn't mean to hit me, or maybe it was just a joke, maybe it was just an accident. And I think it's easy for us people pleasers to talk our way out of feeling hurt because we often think about how our actions impact others. And we're so focused on how we don't want our actions to result in somebody getting hurt. So we might assume that others have good intentions or at least don't have bad intentions, when in reality, that just might not be the case. And I used to think that it was someone's intention that mattered. But that focus didn't allow me to fully experience how I felt about the situation and how it impacted me. In some contexts and relationships, it might be more important to focus on someone's intent. So, for example, maybe a close friend or someone you trust, maybe they didn't mean for what they said to come out that way. But sometimes intent, it doesn't matter when the impact is grave. And impact is information, and I am learning to listen to it. And by focusing on others' thoughts and trying to mind read, I feel like us recovering people pleasers, we often disengage with our own feelings about situations. And I think that's why I've often felt emotionally numb when I'm around other people, even if, let's say, we're in a beautiful place or maybe there's a really touching moment. For me, and I feel like for a lot of us, it's difficult to fully experience the range and intensity of our true emotions when we're so concerned or so attentive to other people's emotions. So, could I have approached either of those situations differently? Maybe. Maybe I could have gotten the instructor involved or maybe said something right away to the first guy. But when you are unlearning people pleasing, you must give yourself grace. And people who benefit from your lack of boundaries, they also know how to create situations that throw you off or make it difficult for you to stand up for yourself. And now I'm learning that setting and maintaining boundaries, it isn't just black and white. It's not you either just let people kind of walk all over you and do whatever they want, or you have to yell at somebody to be heard. You can be firm and kind. And sometimes people will notice a shift in you. And sometimes that shift alone is enough for people to stop testing you. So, if you're comfortable and if you'd like to, I would love to hear from you. What are some tips or tricks when men violate your personal space or boundaries, whether it's at the gym or in other areas? What have you found that's worked for you or maybe didn't work so well? And again, thank you so much for watching and going on this journey with me. We will continue to deconstruct people pleasing, one moment at a time.